not just, hey, how do I look better and how do I have a better physique, but I mean, even just talking to a lot of us, the why, kind of why we're here. It's like, how do I balance my hormone levels? And that can look different for a lot of different people. How do I burn body fat? How do I eat more and still not put on weight? And so there's a lot of different reasons why, you guys might have joined us tonight. But either way, a lot of times when we talk about, that's okay, when we talk about total transformation, because that's what this series is called. It's Total Transformation, Total Body Makeover. So when we talk about transformation, we have to oftentimes unlearn a lot of the things that got us in this mess in the first place, right? Whether we're overweight or whether I just feel groggy all the time, or whether I'm super toxic, or whether I'm on a bunch of medications, or whether I'm sick all the time. I have to almost unlearn a lot of the processes that I've been taught, right? So this transformation, really hear my heart to me. I'm 100% committed to my patients giving or living the life that they want to live, specifically not only today, but obviously in 2023, the next year, the next 10 years, and ultimately having that quality of life. So this is definitely a process. It's a journey. This is, for those of you that might not be 100% clear, this is a 3-part series. So total transformation. Today specifically, we're talking about how to reset the metabolism. What does that mean? How do I do it? What messed it up in the first place? How do I eat and how do I shop? That way I can make sure that those foods are in my house, that I can build my meals with. But then next series, or the next class is exercise. How do I move right? How do I oxygenate my cells? How do I do the things I need to do from an exercise standpoint? And then the third month in March is specifically on weight loss. So again, this all ties together, but really today's really the start of the foundation on really how do I start living my best quality of life to get my body, metabolism, my hormones, getting all that working for me instead of against me. How do I set that in motion so that way I really can start to live the life that I really want to live forever, but specifically this year. So, does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. So we talk about unlearning a lot of the processes, and some of the patients that are in here, you might have seen this chart before too, but when we look at, again, if it's strictly from a losing weight standpoint, by the time you get any symptom of the body, whether it's I have tight jeans, or I'm just not satisfied when I look in the mirror, whether my hormones are tanked, or my energy is tanked, or my moods are off the chart, or I'm medicated for that. When you have a symptom of the body, your body's already at 60% function of an organ or muscle or joint, right? So all of the symptoms that might be across the board that we're going to talk about, our body's already functioning at about half for us to even recognize that there might be a problem I might want to look into, okay? So when we look at health, how do you, Therese, judge your health? When you woke up today, how do most Americans base our health? On what?
How we feel.
How we feel. Would you agree with that? If I look a certain way or if I feel a certain way, I must be healthy or not. But here's the thing, that's a very unpredictable way of determining whether we're healthy. Would you agree with that? Yes or yes? Because the top killers are the diseases, guys, that we don't feel until it's too late, right? Like heart disease, things like cancer, things like diabetes, things like endometriosis, things like fibrocystic ovarian syndrome, right? So by the time you get diagnosed with certain disease processes, there's been a lot of malfunctioning going on in the body, right? So if we simply continue to live our life basing our health to make simply on how we look or how we feel, it's a very unpredictable way, and that's what gets most Americans in trouble. It's like by the time a crisis like the pandemic hits, like, oh, well, now's a good time to start thinking about your immune system, right? Or by the time we get the diagnosis, or by the time my husband has a heart attack, or by the time, God forbid, I get the diagnosis of cancer, it's like, well yeah, this is something that we want to continue to recognize. Health isn't necessarily how we look or how we feel. According to the New Orleans Medical Dictionary, health is 100% function of our body, mentally, physically, socially, and spiritually, not simply the absence of a sickness or disease. So they're saying health is 100% function. right? So if your immune system is functioning at 100%, you don't have autoimmune disease, you don't have cancer. If your heart functioning at 100%, you're not developing heart conditions. If your metabolism is functioning at 100%, you don't have hormone havoc. Does that make sense? So when we talk about function, all of this is designed to allow our body to experience a greater level of functions, because when we're functioning, Pam, that's when you're really healthy, right? So what controls the function? This is why I love what I do, right? There's one thing that controls function of everything, and what is that? Trust me, we'll get to what do I eat? What controls the function, David? Nerves, yeah. More specifically, your brain, right? So when conception, egg and sperm unite, got the most amazing healing power in that brain and spinal cord, because that runs everything. The first thing in the embryonic stage to develop is your nerve system first. Why? Because innate intelligence is put in here, and that runs every organ and tissue and cell from conception to death, right? And so if that brain is carrying life and healing, your cells have everything they need to get well and function, right? Then everything else that we do, guys, if your brain is communicating life and your body's talking up to the brain, tells the brain what's going on, and this communication is happening efficiently and effectively every second of every day, everything else that we do, like the nutrition, like when we're talking about food to stay away from, like the exercise, like the stress management, all of that other, the stretching and all of the things, all the oils that we love to use, the reality is if all of that is just icing on the cake to a healthy functioning nerve system. Does that make sense? Because at the end of the day, if I cut off the head, what happens to your body? So it doesn't matter at that point. If your brain's not communicating life to your adrenal glands or to your thyroid or to your uterus, ladies, if your brain's not communicating life, it doesn't matter what you eat. Right? It doesn't matter how much you exercise. We're going to reach a certain point and then we're going to plateau. Why? Because your body's not functioning at that level. Make sense? Yes? So all of this, so that's why we always start with the nerve system, and most of you guys, we're patients in here. So we already understand the connection between the brain and the body. So let's say we do a lot of nutrition counseling to the outside of like, hey, my mom or my aunt or whatever. Before anything, I always evaluate, is the patient functioning neurologically first? And if they are, then we go into, okay, so this is how we eat, and this is any supplementation, and this is how we exercise. But I would never, Jake, want to give a person a medication, ever, or a supplement, or a certain diet plan if we didn't make sure that your brain, which runs the systems, is functioning efficiently first. Because when that's happening, then all the things that we're going to teach tonight and in the series that come in the workshops, all of that then it just clicks. Why? Because this is how God created our body to heal, period. You see? And so, does that make sense?
Yeah.
So when we look at the necessities of the body, when we talk about turning our power on, these are in ascending orders of good. It says we can go about a month without food. That would be a crappy month. I would hate that month. I can't go like a couple hours without food. But we can, right? Our cells, we don't need food to survive for about a month. You can go days without water. Water's a necessity, right? You can go a minute, 2 minutes maybe if you're trained, 3 without air. Hold your breath for a little bit, right? So exercise, important. Not the end all say all, but you can't go 1 minute without nerve supply, because if I cut off the heart nerve, the heart dies instantly. Stomach dies instantly, right? So that's why we look at the integrity of the nerve system, Martha, first, and then we go from there and then we build, okay? Any questions? So we really need to have the nerve supply, we need to have the exercise, we need to have all, because they're all necessities for how your body's meant to heal. We need that community, and they all need to work together to really allow your body to function and my body to function like it's meant to, okay? So you can't just get adjusted and drink poison, right? That wouldn't make much sense. Your body dies. You can't eat a certain way and not exercise, or exercise and maybe have a toxic diet. That you're not going to have a very good quality of life too. So again, it's just everything working together, but we always, always, always start with that nerve system. So then, when we talk about metabolism, so this is a very loosely almost thrown around word, and most of us tend to think, well, if I have a high metabolism, I have ripped abs, and I have a ton of energy 24/7, right? I mean, most people think high metabolism means all of that good stuff, and usually that is the case. But here's the thing that most people don't understand, that your metabolism essentially means this is how your body utilizes energy, particularly when we're resting, okay? So everything that we eat fuels your metabolism, right? The proteins, the carbohydrates, the fats, which we'll talk about all of that in a minute. But your hormone system runs your metabolism. So if and we're going to talk about what that means, what that looks like, like hormones, I just kind of tend to think, whatever. What are my hormones? What messes them up? And what does that look like? Okay? So metabolism is fueled by proteins, carbohydrates, and fats, and how all of that is broken down to feed our cells. So your cells, all the 100 trillion cells in our body, they need constant fuel for energy. Okay? So if it's not getting constant fuel for energy, it tends to basically you rob Peter to pay Paul. You steals other sources of fuel to get the job done. Okay? We'll expound on that in just a little bit. So it doesn't just simply mean if I have a slow metabolism, doesn't simply mean just being overweight. No. Metabolism, again, because it runs energy, it means like how do you feel when you wake up in the morning? Are you ready to go? Or do you feel kind of like it takes a good hour to wake up? Do you feel like you hit the wall in the afternoon? Do you feel like you need that cup of coffee in the afternoon? Or do you feel like you need that candy bar? Do you feel like you're crashing? Or do you feel like your hormone systems are so messed up that you're super moody? Or you have PMS? Or we have diagnostic problems functionally that I've already been told that this is why I can't conceive, or this is why I miscarry, or this is why, my moods are so off. Because that happens too. Okay? Or this is why I have a low sex drive, or this is why all the things that tend to go wrong, that is metabolism. Okay? Again, it's run by your hormone system, so we're going to talk about that. Signs of a healthy metabolism is this. If your cells get the energy they need, they can function at an optimal level. Okay? Sounds good so far. So optimum energy, you have good sleep, you have lean muscle mass, that muscle to fat ratio, when you have that wave, it's not like that double wave, right? The lean muscle to fat, fat, you still want body fat, but it's a good ratio, okay? You have healthy skin, you have healthy hair, you have a healthy libido. I always say this, if you're not happy, if you're not hungry, and if you're not horny, sorry to be blunt, you do not have a healthy metabolism and your hormones are not in sync. Happy, healthy, that is signs of life, right? That's how God created us, in a healthy way, So, healthy libido, positive mood, easily maintained low body fat. You have a high immune system, you're not sick a lot. That's signs of a good metabolism. Signs of a slow metabolism, or if you have metabolic damage, okay? If your cells don't, again, we kind of hit on this, if your cells don't get the energy they need, it steals from other areas that are less important, that are more of a luxury, like certain glands, certain systems of the body. It steals from other areas so your body can actually survive and live, okay? So if other things downregulate, like all the things that we're kind of talking about, like our mood suffers and we're not hungry, or we have major cravings, or we're hangry. I always kind of say that, well, hangry is not a good thing. It's a sign of an unhealthy metabolism, okay? So other areas start to shut down, so that way it fuels your body, so your heart can beat and your brain can think. Make sense? Okay, signs of a slow metabolism is this. Your weight loss plateaus. And I've talked to, I don't know how many hundreds of patients over the last 19 years that feel like they do all of the right things and they kind of just get stuck, right? Or there's still this layer that I can't get rid of. Or there's still, like, I look in the mirror and I'm still not 100% satisfied. Or I just don't have the energy that I wish I did. Or my relationship strained because I just don't feel like it, right? Weight loss plateaus, we have low energy, we have restless sleep, right? It's tough to get up in the morning. They either have a hard time falling asleep or a difficult time staying asleep, like they wake up all the time, okay, consistently. Constipation or bloating. Constipation is one of the main symptoms of a hypothyroidism, okay? Your thyroid's deregulated, not functioning like it should. Constipation or bloating is a big sign of that. We're going to talk about all this, by the way. Constant urination, dry skin and hair. So if you get rashes, you get a lot of allergies, thinning hair, things like that. Signs of metabolic damage. Brain fog or depression, decreased muscle mass, increased body fat, feeling of being cold a lot, digestive issues. When your thyroid hormone decreases, that causes your hydrochloric acid to decrease as well. So your thyroid hormone, we're going to talk about this, basically is the master gland when it comes to regulating your hormone system. Okay, your thyroid hormone is. So what we're going to discuss tonight is how to make sure we're fueling our thyroid with the right nutrients so it can actually be the driver of this train called your metabolism. Does that make sense? So when your thyroid is deregulated because of, we're going to go over like stress and endocrine disruptors or what we do to it, chronic medications, birth control is a big problem or a causative factor. What happens if your thyroid deregulates, it decreases the hydrochloric acid being released in your stomach. So then you have food that becomes undigestible because your stomach needs an acidic environment. So if things become undigestible in your stomach, you have a bunch of things that aren't being digested, which causes a lot of gas, bloating, a lot of what am I trying to say? Food intolerances, a lot of things start to go wrong. So if we have digestive issues, we got to look to the thyroid as well. By the way, also decreased thyroid hormone in women particularly. So men too, but when we have low thyroid function, it decreases our progesterone levels, which allows estrogen to go high. Who knows? Estrogen is important, but not too much estrogen constantly. It's like a fight or flight. Okay, so when we have high estrogen levels, it leads to hormonal havoc in every capacity. So a lot of cancers are because your estrogen is soaring and you don't have enough progesterone to balance that. So we're going to talk about that again. And compromised immune system, again, a lot of your health comes from your GI lining, so we want to make sure that that balance, things are being digested, it doesn't mess up, the gut flora with that. Consequences of a damaged metabolism, okay? So who knows, if you tweak one hormone, you tweak them all, right? It's like a domino effect. Yep. So this is why this is so broad of a topic, and that's why if you go to your doctor specifically for low energy, or all the things that we're talking about, or my mood, or my my body fat, or whatever, or my sleep. And can you see how oftentimes if you go to get something fixed, a lot of things are misdiagnosed and overprescribed, and we're really not getting down to the root of any of it. So we walk around with a bunch of sick, toxic people that are just like, well, this is my genes, or this is the hand I've been dealt. Like, no. Your body's just so confused and so messed up because we're beating the snot out of it and we're misdiagnosing, and we're wondering why we're sick and depressed and on medications and fat and unhappy and just blah, all the time. Make sense? So, consequences of a damaged metabolism, you have adrenal fatigue because your adrenals are meant to keep your body at homeostasis. So if your body's all over control hormonally, your adrenals are like, what the heck? I'm trying to keep you even keel, and I'm constantly having to pull your body back down, right? So you burn out the adrenal glands, which is a whole nother topic in seminar. You have sleep issues, you have mood disorders, you have lactose intolerance. You have SIBO, which is small intestine bacteria overgrowth, again, because your body's not digesting at the rate that it should be. You have increased blood pressure, cognitive damage, hair loss, dry skin, puffy eyes, rigid, slow-growing nails, digestive issues, and liver and detox issues. Some of this sound familiar? Unfortunately, right? So what causes all of this? So there's a lot of different things that can mess up our metabolism and our hormone system. So we're just going to go through a couple of them. But a lot of times when we struggle with our appearance, we jump on every fad diet there is, right? I'm going to go keto, or I'm going to do intermittent fasting, or I'm going to totally cut out carbohydrates, or I'm going to just exercise the snot out of myself, right? Or I'm going to only do the carnivore diet where I only eat meat and fat, or I'm going to, right? And we tend to jump around, and things will work for a little bit, but then we plateau. And then, well, that didn't work. Well, and we always tend to jump around. So things like cutting carbohydrates drastically is the worst thing you can do when it comes to losing body fat, okay? We're gonna talk about why that is, but here's the thing. When your thyroid produces a bunch of hormones, T1, T2, T3, and T4, which are converted into metabolic drivers in things like your liver, your pancreas, and your spleen, okay? So T4 is converted into T3. So in order for that transition to happen, which T3 drives your metabolism, in order for that to happen, it needs sugar to do that, okay? So if we don't have carbohydrates fueling that process, then that conversion doesn't take place. So that becomes a big problem when it comes to getting the physique that we want. Does that make sense? So carbohydrates, absolutely necessary. It needs glucose. Every cell does. That's what gives your body energy. We're gonna break that down. Low calorie eating. So without enough food, your metabolism decreases to conserve energy, right? So if you don't have enough calories, again, your body is robbing it of glands and other organs and systems, things like your reproductive organs, your digestive tract, other things that are more of a luxury and not a necessity. So it'll rob other areas just to be alive, okay? So got to make sure you're eating enough. Excessive cardio. Again, cardio, I love working out. I love CrossFit. I love Metcons. I love exercise. However, that is a very stressful process to your body. So what happens when you do too much cardio, what tends to happen is your body's constantly in a fight or flight response, right? Which messes the cortisol levels and your insulin levels, and all of the things kind of have a domino effect. So people that exercise too much, we see this a lot in our college athletes, or people that compete at a certain level, is that, man, they look really good, but they have no cycle, right? Or they have, polycystic ovarian syndrome, or they have all these different things going on because their body is so deregulated in other areas. So we see this a lot with our specific athletes. So excessive cardio. A diet and high muscle meats. Okay, if you have muscle meats are like things like turkey, pork, chicken, okay? Things that are like muscle meats. So the reason this is an endocrine disruptor or changes your metabolism is because muscle meats are high in amino acids tryptophan, okay, right? So turkey, that's why you get tired after you eat like things, that was always like the thing, right? And cysteine, so those two amino acids, basically when they are not balanced, and we're going to talk about, you can still eat muscle meats, but how to balance them so it's metabolically good for you. Basically what those tend to do, they're anti-metabolic. So an unhealthy ratio of cysteine and tryptophan, obviously not good. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. Eating lots of PUFAs. Who's heard of PUFAs? Unsaturated fatty acids. So this is all the stuff that is like, it's a liquid vegetable oil. Okay, anything that's in our packaged meat, it's a big endocrine disruptor. Or not packaged meat, packaged foods in general. Unsustainable, they're vegetable oils. As soon as your body ingests it, because it's unsaturated fat, but the chain is very unstable. So as soon as your body ingests it and your metabolism starts to work on it, they're very unstable, so it basically oxidizes. So very unhealthy. So eating a lot of those are not good. Stress, it's the greatest cause of aging, degeneration, messed up hormones. So obviously none of us can get away from stress, but just realizing the impact that stress has on our metabolism, on our hormone system, we need to be aware. And that can be anything, guys. Stress is not just, my schedules and I'm feeling overwhelmed. This could be things that happened years ago, right? This could be guilt. This could be anything. Emotional stress, physical stress, okay? And we'll talk anxiety, lack of sleep, all of that. We're gonna talk about this and break this down maybe a little bit more. Lack of sunlight, who was I talking to, vitamin D, right? Lack of sunlight, excess estrogen or toxicity, not enough quality protein, eliminating dairy. What? Dairy? I thought dairy was bad. You told me. We're gonna talk about why it's not bad. And low sodium diets. So here's how we increase it. It's very difficult for somebody to prioritize getting healthy when most people are so tired of what they look like. Does that make sense? So when I'm talking about resetting the metabolism and healing that metabolism from a nutrition standpoint, oftentimes a lot of the things that we are taught and we're like, well, I thought dairy was bad, or I thought eating a bowl of chicken and rice is good for bodybuilding. Maybe, but probably not. So when we prioritize with our lives, and this is individual for everybody, getting healthy and resetting the body to do its job better, we're going to teach you how you should be able to eat 3,000 calories a day and look good, like ripped. Not, I don't eat breakfast and I only eat one big meal a day and I feel like I'm like, blah. That's not good, right? So we're going to teach you how to do that, but it's very difficult to kind of believe it because we thought dairy was bad this whole time, or just eat a big, bowl of chicken. Yes, can we wait until the end just because there's a lot? But please write it down, I want to answer it. So how do we increase metabolism? The way in is typically the way out. You can repair damaged metabolism, but it just takes time and there's a process with that. So when we look at nutrition, and we're going to break this part down specifically, we're talking about eating pro-thyroid enhancing nutrients, okay? Metabolically stimulating food, things like dairy, things like muscle meats in a certain way, and combination is very good. Carbohydrates are your friend. You want to eat carbohydrates, you need to eat carbohydrates, but it's eating the right carbs, okay? Again, you eat low carbohydrates, your body uses itself. It takes it basically breaks down your muscles and your tissues for glycogen. Okay, so instead of having sugar that we just ate from like fruit or whatever, instead of having that readily usable energy, it starts breaking down its own body and muscle mass just to fuel your energy. Okay, so carbohydrates, got to make sure that we eat the right kinds. We're going to talk about which ones those are. Saturated fats, the type of fat matters. So we're looking at butter, we're looking at coconut oil, we're looking at grass-fed meats, we're looking at dark chocolate. Yes, you can eat good and you can eat fun and you can eat all the good stuff that we were told. What do you mean red meat? I thought that causes heart attacks. No, in fact, eat all the eggs you want, all the butter you want. It will not cause heart attacks, I promise you. Promise you. Avoid PUFAs. These are the vegetable oils, the margarines, the soy products, okay? All the pastry products, the processed foods. Eat the right protein, decrease stress levels. So anything that decreases your stress response, you want to do. So for example, you like cuddling with your dog? Cuddle with your dog. You like cuddle with your little girl? Cuddle with your girl. It depends on the day. I know. I get it. You've heard of grounding, right? Walking barefoot on the ground. There's something that recharges the ions in you, right? Being connected to nature. There's something in all of us that yearns for that, okay? That's important. So anything that decreases your stress, go for a light jog. Great, go. Decreases stress hormones, okay? So if you're really going to be serious about losing weight and getting your hormone system back on track, you got to really start addressing the stress levels. Again, it's unavoidable, but we all can manage the stress that we have, maybe a little differently. Eat frequent intervals. This evens out our blood sugar levels. So eat frequently, reduce exhausting excessive cardio regimes. Again, exercise equals stress, which increases cortisol, which is your stress hormone, which increases estrogen and decreases progesterone. Okay? You following me? Good. Salt. Again, necessary, important, keeps you hydrated. It doesn't dehydrate you, doesn't increase your blood pressure to an extent. But salt, it decreases cortisol. It is thermogenic. You ever boil pasta water? What do you put in it to boil it faster? Salt, right? It's thermogenic. Gets things speeded up a little faster. It increases metabolism. It's a natural diuretic, so you will not bloat if you have salt. You will bloat if you don't have the right fuel, okay? Which is kind of what we're talking about. The relationship then between hormones and fat. Okay, so again, our goal is to eat pro-metabolically, to help stimulate your thyroid, which will help increase your metabolism, which will help decrease your cortisol, which will help balance out your blood sugar levels, right? This is the goal of tonight and how to kind of get things starting to move in the right direction. So the hormones and fat, so getting lean and in shape has all to do with your hormones, has very little to do calories in versus calories out, okay? So my son asked me the other day, and I forget what it was like close to 2 years that I've tracked everything that I've eaten. Pretty close for almost 2 years. So I'm looking at that personally. I look at my training regimen in the gym, so I look at that personally. But when it comes to getting your body working better and undoing a lot of the damage that has been done already, it has more to do with your hormones as opposed to just tell me what I need to eat and chicken is good and rice is good and eggs are bad. No. So we're gonna talk and break down nutrition in just a specific way. But again, hormones have a direct impact on the following: weight gain and weight loss, healthy, fast metabolism versus slow metabolism, adequate energy versus chronic fatigue, improved moods and feelings or feelings of depression, good quality sound sleep or broken restless sleep, fluid retention or dehydration, food cravings or being full, PMS, or good mood, right? Hormones, so usually most of us fall into one side of that category versus the other side. So your hormones, when we talk about hormones, here's those specific hormones that we're talking about. Estrogen, progesterone, thyroid, insulin, cortisol, and leptin, okay? So when you have a balance of all of these, and you don't have to know the ins and outs of all of them, okay? There's so much here that I'm not a nutritionist. I'm a chiropractor. I'm well aware, I'm in my lane, but I also know how the body's created to work and heal. So when you understand that God created a balance, and when things are balancing, things are working the way they're meant to work. Okay, so when these hormones are balanced, everything's gonna do its job better. If things are out of balance, then again, things start to have that domino effect. So our focus for tonight at least, and for the next couple months, is to start achieving that hormone balance so our body starts doing its job better, okay? Specifically with these hormones. So as soon as stress hormone cortisol increases, so who feels like they have some stress in their life? We all do, right? We all do. So as soon as cortisol increases, belly fat is likely to increase, okay? When thyroid gland is suppressed, metabolism slows down. If progesterone production is blocked, cellulite, food cravings, and mood issues arise due to estrogen dominance. Grace, did that stop?
Yeah, it keeps like automatically stopping. It won't start again.
Okay, that's okay. Just fill me with yours.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Stress, cortisol, and adrenal fatigue. Types of stress. Again, we kind of went over it. Emotional, relational, financial, feeling overwhelmed, anxious or depressed, poor nutrition. Stress from excessive cardio, being exhausted all the time, or restricting calories. So again, if we're really serious about balancing our hormones, we're gonna look at, and most of us understand, like, hey, there's one area that really sticks out to me that is maybe worse than others. So it's not maybe, let's say financial, but maybe it's emotional. It's not maybe relational, but it's financial. So it's really identifying what stress is our biggest stressor, or what 2 categories do I really wanna focus on maybe dealing with that type of stress. And how am I going to tackle that? Okay, so identifying the type of stress that is most prevalent to us, and that season can change, right? It's not, life is never linear. We're talking to a patient, you're always gonna have ebbs and flows. So certain seasons are gonna be more stressful than others, right? So it's identifying that stress, but then excessive cortisol, because we know that cortisol is the stress hormone. So when we're stressed out, even as it pertains, and I've talked to many of you guys, even when we're stressed out, cortisol is at an all-time high. Well, that acts as a muscle relaxer. So even holding your adjustment, you're not going to hold your adjustment at the level that you should if you're constantly stressed out, right? So it's like, well, why do I keep getting headaches? Or why do I have still my hip pain? Or why do I have this? Or why? Well, because your body's not out of balance there. You see, so we're trying to achieve this balance so your body can actually do its job, hold its adjustment, neurologically function better. Excessive cortisol, which is the stress hormone, right, can cause this: fluid retention, fat storage, stomach acidity, muscle wastage, arthritis, insomnia, food cravings, improved anxiety, chronic fatigue syndrome, and hypothyroidism. Sounds awesome. Estrogen and progesterone. Progesterone is a hormone that opposes estrogen, okay? So progesterone is the most protective hormone in your body, okay? So that's a good thing. So when we have low thyroid function, because this is burnout, low thyroid function, we have low progesterone, which allows estrogen to rise. Okay, so what we are going to talk about tonight, here shortly, is how do I decrease the estrogen production so that way that balance of progesterone and estrogen are more in balance, so it'll allow my hormones to do its job better and everything to function better. Benefits of progesterone is this: it boosts wellness, enables a sense of calm, it increases metabolism, it decreases inflammation, it opposes estrogen and fat storage, it works as a diuretic, helping prevent bloating and retention, fluid retention. It works great as a natural depressant, antidepressant, and it regulates blood sugar. Issues associated with excess estrogen: it reduces metabolic rate, you have weight gain, difficulty losing fat, particularly ladies, from your thighs and your butt and your belly, okay? Emotional mood swings, you have depression and anxiety, low body temperatures, cyclic insomnia, PMS, headaches, irregular cycles, or formation of varicose veins. You have chronic fatigue, you have bloating, you have decreased elastin in your skin, which is, again, aging process. Who feels like they age quicker than they used to, right? Impaired learning ability, cyclic insomnia, brain fog, decreased immune system, allowing cancers to develop, okay, when you're estrogen dominant. So here's a few tips to decrease estrogen in your body. The daily carrot salad. Has anybody heard of this? Okay. Literally, there's probably not a day that goes by that I don't have carrot salad, okay? So here's the cool thing about carrot salad. We're gonna go over what that looks like. The recipe's in here as well. But carrots have this unique property that it binds excess estrogen because your body, so the fibers of a carrot are a little, they're difficult to digest. So what happens is the excess estrogen that's floating around because of stress and, again, all the kind of things we've talked about, binds to the carrots, and so your body can eliminate and detox with it. Increased calcium from dairy products. Okay, so dairy products, you heard of like raw, it will not cause issues, right? So again, contrary to popular belief, raw, unpasteurized dairy products, very good in nutrients. When we talk about bioavailable nutrients in things like grass-fed beef, eggs, dairy products, rice, potatoes, all of the things that we're like, oh my God, this is bad, it's gonna cause me to gain weight. We're talking about what's the most bang for your buck, things that God created to be super packed full of nutrients and everything that we need to allow and sustain life, okay? Dairy's a big part of that too. So we're gonna talk about if I'm lactose intolerant and why that is and stuff in just a second, but ensure quality proteins, include gelatin, aid in supporting progesterone production. reduce toxic chemicals from beauty regimens, body moisturizers, household cleaning products. Basically, any toxin disrupts your hormone system. Okay, so things that I'm putting perfume on, makeup on, what I'm washing my body with, things that I'm breathing in the air, things that I'm putting on my clothing, like my dryer sheets is probably one of the worst household toxic things that we can do, like cleaning household, and that's just in our homes, which we think is safe and it's our space, right? Then you go outside, and then we're breathing all the junk in, right? And then we go, taking all these medications, and then women that are on birth control, totally regulating and deregulating and misregulating our systems. So all of these things tend to happen, and then we wonder why we're toxic and not healthy, right? Reduce excessive and exhaustive cardio regimens, avoid estrogenic foods like soy, legumes, cruciferous vegetables. What? I thought vegetables were good. We're going to talk about that in just a second. Vegetables are good. Vitamin A from saturated fats help you increase hormone synthesis. Thyroid hormone support progesterone and opposes estrogen. Okay. So, understanding PMS. And this goes for, too, like women when we go through the change. It's associated, not all women have PMS. Not all women have very bad moods. Not everybody has a bad cycle. Not everybody has trouble conceiving. Not everybody has that rough change later in life. But it is associated with slow metabolism, reduced fat burning, and high estrogen levels. Okay. When you get done ovulating, right, and progesterone is at an all-time high, you don't have things like those mood swings, like you're bloating, right? A lot of cramping and then a lot of pain. Why? Because estrogen or progesterone's high, right? When progesterone is low and estrogen then is high, that's what develops all the issues. Make sense? So your body is meant to have that cycle, but what happens if our body's stuck in that cycle, that's not good. Estrogen and fat storage on the lower body. Again, this is balance. The importance to keep in mind here is that's when we need to balance our estrogen and progesterone ratios, okay, which we'll talk about. When we're estrogen dominant, a lot of things, obviously it increases your cortisol, it increases your insulin, it decreases, again, the progesterone ratio. Balancing that ratio is extremely important. More stress equals increased cortisol, equals increased estrogen, equals decreased progesterone. This is extremely important. So when we look at the carrot salad, this is raw carrots, by the way. It's lower anti-thyroid and inflammatory substance. It reduces liver burden. It assists the GI tract and liver to detoxify the endotoxin and estrogen. So the excess estrogen, it gets rid of those toxins and the excess estrogen. It improves the overall health of the colon. It lowers serotonin and histamine, producing cortisol. Lower bacterial growth, because obviously your bacteria, again, it's undigestible, but it is fiber, so your body gets rid of it, so it doesn't just stay in there. Okay, bacteria doesn't attack it like it would, let's say, things that are more undigestible. Okay, so it lowers inflammation. So here's how you do it. My husband yesterday was grating his carrots. We buy carrots in bulk at Kroger. Grated a couple knuckles. He's like, dang it, that just healed up from last week. So he's grating carrots. What you do is you put little dashes of white wine vinegar. Okay. I tend to throw, just to make it a little bit more fun, either whether we have, I put dried cherries in it yesterday, just a couple of dried cherries, or you can put raisins in it, makes it a little bit sweeter. You can put, sometimes I put grated Parmesan cheese, because when we talk about increasing dairy, specifically cheese, you want more like that artisanal, like basically cheese that you would good over in Europe. Parmesan cheese essentially is the best type of cheese to help this process. So you do that, a little bit of coconut oil, salt, and there you go. So it's super easy. You have your proteins, or you have your carbohydrates, you have your fat, body helps burn it, get rid of it. So it's just a naturally detoxing salad, and it's delicious. Personal care and cleaning products. Simply put, chemicals increase estrogen. Don't feed cellulite or risk disrupting the endocrine system by slapping on moisturizers with parabens, perfumes, and sodium lauryl sulfate. So just look at the bottle, you can't read it, or if the ingredients are this big, you know it's not good for you. So instead, use chemical-free organic skincare products, moisturize, saturated. So here's the thing that I always hear though too, guys. I always hear like, well, it's unavoidable. No, actually it is avoidable. It is. We're just either being lazy, we don't want to do our research, or we're just not willing to change that habit, right? But I remember my mom was like, she always did baking soda for her teeth, and she had olive oil to moisturize her skin. Still does. By her stinking nightstand, I'm like, you're still using that olive oil. It's probably the same bottle that I grew up with. But it's like, but that's what they did back then, right? But to this day, she's not on any medications. She still has her own teeth. She still has her uterus. She still has, right? She still has all the function, like, she's 76, I think. She'll never watch this. But, I mean, but that's how it, right? Or you can just slap on a bunch of stuff that we can't even name and ruin our, endocrine system and everything else. So, choice is ours. But good chemical-free organic skincare. There's a lot of them out there. Beauty counters are good. If you don't know, but beauty counters are good for moisturizer, makeup, all of that. Or saturated oils, things like olive oil, coconut oil, MCT, shea butter, right? We've all seen like shea butter moisturize all of that stuff. There's a reason why it's good, because it is. Not toxic. Insulin and blood sugar regulation. Okay, we're almost done. But insulin and blood sugar regulation, to ensure the body is in constant fat burning state and constantly maintaining even energy, the blood sugar levels need to be monitored and stabilized. This is when you need proteins, carbs, and fats present in all meals. So to keep that blood sugar stable, for those of us with diabetes, or feel like we get hungry, or we already have those metabolic disease processes already begun, you need to keep your blood sugar stable, okay? So that means every meal, protein, carbohydrates, and fats. What does that look like? We'll go over what that means. Again, we need that constant steady supply of glycogen, which is sugar, okay, for energy, and thyroid conversion. It's known as balancing your blood sugar. When blood sugar is stable, so is the energy, moods, and fat loss. So this is eating frequently, okay? So again, eat every couple hours. If you don't eat breakfast, start eating breakfast, okay? Super important. Any of the following symptoms may mean you have difficulty managing your blood sugar levels.
I need to apologize.
That's okay, Mike. Thanks for coming. Have a good night. Cravings for sweets or coffee, irritability when hungry, binge eating, energy crashes in the afternoon, sleep issues, trouble sleeping or staying asleep, falling asleep, fatigue relieved with food, foggy thinking, frequent urination, hitting the wall, mood crashes, and highs. Means your blood sugar is probably unstable, so we need to do a better job of stabilizing that blood sugar. Again, insulin, that is a hormone which helps run everything else too, so again, it's part of the puzzle. So if you have low blood sugar, we have increased adrenaline too, which again, increases adrenaline, which increases the stress hormone, and then you have that vicious cycle, okay? To stabilize blood sugar levels, this is what you do. You eat a balanced protein, fats, and carbs we talked about with every meal. Here's what your carbs need to look like, primarily from fructose, which is from fruit, okay? So when you get, basically, fructose does not require insulin, okay? So fruit does not make you gain weight. Let me say that for the people in the back. Fruit does not make you gain weight. When you have an insulin spike, that insulin, if you do not burn off those calories in that sugar, your body stores that sugar as fat. So typically, people that get fat has an insulin spike, okay? Because you're eating foods that require insulin. You've heard of like the glycemic index. If you have foods that are high in the glycemic index, that means there's a lot of glycogen in that food. So things like bread, or potatoes, or rice, or like a lot of the starches, if it has a high glycemic index, requires insulin typically, which obviously you're not gonna go run a marathon, you're gonna go sit at a desk or help your kid with homework, so you're going to store that as fat, okay? So when we talk about carbohydrates, these should be primarily composed of fructose, which is sugars found in fruits and juices. Now that's not your Hawaiian punch juice, that is your actual juice from a fruit, right? That's not filled with sugar and artificial flavors and Sunny D, okay? This is actual fruit. It inhibits there you go. It inhibits the stimulation of insulin and uses fructose for immediate energy. So if we're talking about, and literally you go back on my desk right now, I always have a couple, like mandarin oranges. I eat at least 2 a day. It's like my favorite snack. My desk, I think I have like 4 or 5 of them actually back there. But why? Because your body doesn't need insulin and it uses that for energy, right? So that's good. Include gelatin with muscle meat. So do you know what gelatin is? Okay, gelatin, there's a part in here. I keep saying it's coming up because it is. But gelatin is basically like, it's from the connective tissue. Okay, so it's like collagen. Sprinkle collagen on your muscle meats. It helps balance out the amino acid profile of the tryptophan, right? And cysteine, which we talked about, which is high in muscle meats, which are bad for your metabolism. So use collagen. I basically sprinkle, like if I'm doing chicken, like I had chicken today, I sprinkle a tablespoon of collagen. I sprinkle a tablespoon of collagen, and I actually put a little bit of bone broth on there too. Helps balance out that amino acid profile. Okay. Bada boom, there you have it. That's how you can eat your muscle meats. Consume saturated fats with complex carbs. We're going to talk about what a simple versus complex carb is. So you need fats to help your body process and utilize complex carbs. It basically helps the absorption rate into your bloodstream. So that would be like you're eating your potatoes with butter, okay? Or you're doing rice with olive oil, okay? Or you're doing red meat. Grass-fed red meat has protein and it has saturated fats, okay? And then you're doing your potato with that, okay? So if you have carbohydrates, you want to make sure that you have saturated fats with that to obviously influence how it's absorbed in your bloodstream. You want to eat frequently, eat within an hour of waking. Do not skip breakfast for those of you that work for me in the back or that are sitting here or watching online. You want to make sure you eat breakfast or at least within an hour of waking up. Eat a snack before bed. What ProMetabolic recommends, again, protein, carbohydrates, and fats with each meal, they recommend things like milk with like honey, like right before bed. Or, because it has your protein, it has your carbohydrates, it has your fat, or like yogurt with gelatin, or something that has, your body can utilize it, it can sustain that blood sugar even when we're sleeping, and then we wake up and we're ready to go the next day. Questions so far? This last little bit is specifically on where I kept saying, we're gonna talk about that, we're gonna actually now talk about that. So, pro-metabolic nutrition is eating in a way that helps upregulate our thyroid. So if we, let's say, have had thyroid taken out, or we're on thyroid medications, it is difficult to regulate your hormones as opposed to working with the original one that God gave us, but there is a way to do that. And if that's you, we're gonna talk about that, you and I, on a separate meeting. But eating pro-metabolically helps upregulate the thyroid gland activity. So when you have good thyroid function, all of these other things are gonna follow suit, okay? It avoids foods that downregulate the thyroid, helps maintain hormone balance and excessive estrogen, designed to improve digestion, stabilize blood sugar, improve sleep, and increases energy. It enables you to eat more, not less, okay? Who wants to eat more and feel good about it? And look good. You guys are weird. I love eating. It's okay to say yes. Like, you can eat all day long too. Okay, so the first thing we're going to look at is optimize first, so you gotta eat more food. There's so many, like decades worth of studies that show from like people that study like metabolism, coaches, athletes, that show typically the average person, when you eat more, you are a better fat burner. The average female needs to be eating anywhere from 2,200 to 3,400 calories a day. Like 2,000 just to stay alive. 2,000 just to stay alive. 22 though to 34. The average male, anywhere from 35 to 44,000 calories a day to become a good, sustainable, healthy individual. So if we're like, I don't want to eat bread, or I don't want to eat this, or I'm afraid of eating dairy or eggs, the reality is you're not getting the calories, let alone the bioavailable nutrients that your body needs to actually sustain life and heal. So we're going to talk about how to be able to eat well, but it's eating more foods that support your thyroid, not just, well, I'm going to go to Dairy Velvet, or I'm going to go to McDonald's and just get my calories. It's eating the right things that help support what we're talking about. So, optimize first. We're going to gradually increase our calories from a pro-thyroid food, which we'll get into. Famous last words. We're going to talk about that. Understanding carbohydrates. Again, we know that carbohydrates are your energy source. You don't have this, you don't have a lot. Okay, so the best kind of carbohydrates, here it is, circle it, highlight it, whatever you want to do. Ripe tropical fruits, natural raw honey, root vegetables, quality dairy, and pulp-free orange juice. Why pulp-free? Because it doesn't have the fiber in it, so it doesn't become, people that have like some inflammation in their gut, it becomes a little bit irritating if there's pulp. So fiber in it just makes it a little bit more difficult. Or have you ever had people that's like, man, every time I eat an apple, I just get bloated. Or when I eat healthy things, I just feel like junk. Deb, remember? Yes. Okay. So that's why we're going over this. So body's primary energy source, sugars increase conversion of T4 to T3 in fuel metabolism. Cells require a constant supply of energy. When carbs are not available, fat is used for energy, which is good in a crisis state. So everyone knows what keto is. You don't eat any carbohydrates. It's good if there's crisis. It's meant to be adaptive. But when you have ongoing ketosis happening, that's not good, okay? Again, your body sacrifices, it literally gets the calories from muscles and from tissues in your body to help supply it. So that's why people that are on like a ketogenic diet, they'll lose weight for a little bit, but our goal is not to lose weight. Initially, our goal is to sustain the natural process so your body can actually lose weight and burn fat and do all the things that we're talking from a healthy perspective, not just I want to look good, okay? So when okay. Simple carbs are the easiest to digest, which we talked about. If you don't have carbohydrates with every meal, your body releases cortisol with that. So like let's say, well, I'm just gonna drink a protein shake, and protein shake has low fat, but high proteins and no carbohydrates. Okay, well you're gonna wanna eat like some sort of piece of fruit with that, because what happens is if your cortisol goes up, then everything else, right? You have a high estrogen, you have low progesterone, and everything goes tanked. Okay, so you eat protein, you're gonna wanna make sure that you have carbohydrates with every meal so your body can actually process and metabolize well. Preferred simple carbohydrates, so there's two types of carbs, there's simple and complex, okay? Simple carbohydrates, we talked about the ripe fruit, the natural sugars, the juice, the orange juice, the honey, the dairy, all of that. So dairy is, by the way, considered a perfect food because it has the perfect balance. Oh my gosh, God knew what he was doing when he made it. It's perfect food because it has a perfect balance of proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. That's why back in the day, right? That was like a main staple on the dinner table, on the breakfast table, right? Today's milk, not as well. And let alone like oat products or milk derivatives, not as good, okay, and heavily processed. Preferred complex carbs or starches, you have your white potatoes, white rice, and sourdough bread. Who loves bread?
Me.
I love bread. And oats, by the way, is also good. Other sources of carbs but not recommended in the pro-metabolic way of eating is whole grains or refined breads, cereals, pastas, that kind of thing. Okay? So if you're gonna have carbohydrates, stick to the ones like the potatoes, the white rice, the flour. Why? Because it's very easy on your digestive tract. It doesn't take a lot to digest them. And if it balances out your body system, you can process it, utilize the energy, and your body's not stuck with a bunch of stuff that it can't digest. Quality protein. Okay, so we talk about protein. Protein is for healing and repair and for liver health. The best forms of protein are non-inflammatory pro-thyroid things like eggs, white fish, organic dairy, bone broth, and gelatin. Bone broth is extremely good. So you ever remember when grandma or your mom used to make chicken noodle soup when you're not feeling good? Right, your belly hurts, let's just make you some chicken noodle soup, right? There's a lot of benefit to things like bone broth for your GI lining specifically. Tons of nutrients, tons of protein in there that you don't get from a lot of different food sources. So bone broth is a staple in our house. We make it, I always keep it in my freezer, always add it to my meat. Add it to there's a bone broth hot chocolate recipe. I realize it's not like the hot chocolate from Starbucks. It is a little bit of an acquired taste, but it's good, okay? And it's healthy, and it's anti-inflammatory. Other sources of carbs, we're on proteins. Other proteins, other animal products, animal byproducts. Of course, you have beans, nuts, seeds, whole grains. They have some protein as well. But if there's protein deficiency, your metabolism tanks, and your thyroid function decreases, which increases your cortisol levels, and the cycle is the cycle. Bless you. So the best source is organic, grass-fed, or roaming meats. Okay? It has the iron, it has all the essential amino acids in it to actually build healthy cells upon. Grass-fed beef, by the way, has 50% less fat than commercially raised beef. So if you get your beef from a farmer that raises beef in the back 40, right? Eating the grass and the things that God meant him to eat, then obviously the composition, meat versus fat, is 50% less than let's just build up these cows and the fat content and everything goes crazy. And actually that fat in the commercially raised beef is inflammatory, not anti-inflammatory like it would be in the pasture raised, okay? So organic, grass-fed, roaming meats, the best quality protein. Shellfish, loaded with tons of vitamins and minerals in there. Bone broth and gelatin, again, this is free from cysteine and tryptophan, so it balances out that amino acid profile like we talked about. So if you're gonna eat chicken, just put bone broth or gelatin on it. So I usually do, if I'm eating 115 grams of, which is basically like the palm of your hand, of chicken, I either do a cup of bone broth or 1 tablespoon of gelatin, which is the collagen. Okay, so either or I sometimes do both, like today I did both. Raw organic dairy and pasture organic eggs. Those are good sources of, best sources of protein, I should say. Again, you want to avoid the estrogenic foods. You can read through that. The muscle meats. Here's why muscle meats, and we kind of touched on this. Muscle meats like chicken breast or lean beef is very high in amino acid, tryptophan, and cysteine, which we talked about. Inhibits your thyroid, likely to slow down metabolism when consuming these meats. Again, eat with gelatin or bone broth. Sounds like pretty redundant, like we just talked about. Proteins like non-inflammatory, non-thyroid suppressing sources like dairy, eggs, shellfish, seafood, gelatin, bone broth. So when you go to the store on Saturday or on Thursday or Sunday, whatever day that you go to Kroger or Walmart or Aldi's or wherever, you are going to take this list or write down, these are my food lists that I'm going to eat. These are my proteins, these are my carbohydrates, and these are my fats, simple sugars. Again, easy to digest, helps your thyroid stimulate, right? And do all that good domino effect that the thyroid needs to do. But you need those simple sugars and things like the fruit and the honey and all of that stuff. Sourdough, let's talk about that real quick. So sourdough, I make sourdough every week. You can buy sourdough, whatever. If you are interested in making your own sourdough, I'm your gal. I have a ton of starters. Let me know. It is super easy. It sounds intimidating, but it is super easy. Saves you a lot of money. Here's the cool thing with sourdough. Sourdough doesn't have a lot of junk in it, right? So a lot of commercial breads are filled with, first of all, it's so nutritionally raped that there's nothing good. And they add chemicals like bromide and all the things that literally are that hormone disruptor, decreases immune function, literally develops cancer in rats. So you want to stay away from commercially breads. But here's the thing with sourdough, because the natural fermentation there's no yeast in it, so the natural fermentation of the bacteria actually aids your GI lining. Here's the cool thing also. With sourdough, the way it's like the way the fermentation happens, when you bake that, you know how it's like crusty on the outside and super soft on the inside? When you bake that, a lot of the nutrition components of all the good stuff in the grain that God made, right, that are healthy for us, but just get ripped out of the commercial breads, stay intact. So a lot of people that are even like gluten intolerant can eat sourdough because the whole fermentation process basically breaks down the gluten. So people that are like gluten intolerant do good with sourdough bread. So if you are interested in that sourdough journey, let me know. I would love to hook you up and get rid of some. I keep feeding these things, and I made 2 loaves of cinnamon bread yesterday. I made cinnamon rolls yesterday. I made a couple of loaves of just regular. I mean, we eat that. We go through 2 to 4, depending on if I let my kids, how much I let my kids eat of it. I'm like, oh, I just made that yesterday and it's gone. But anyway, we eat a lot of bread, but it's good and it doesn't cause you to gain weight. There's no insulin spike. In fact, it's very low on the glycemic index chart. So it doesn't cause that insulin spike, which causes the fat storage and all of that stuff. So sourdough is a good complex carb I eat every day. Every day. It's like my favorite thing with a bunch of butter on it. Yes, quality matters. Processed additives, preservatives, flavors, and colorings reduce the quality of our food, increase toxicity. Calcium in dairy. Dairy is a great protein source, loaded with bioavailable nutrients and minerals. Valuable amino acid profile that doesn't suppress your thyroid function and is a great source of sugar. We talked about this, known as a complete food. If you are lactose intolerant or you respond negatively to dairy, most likely it's due to an inflammation in your gut, okay? Those who consume highly undigestible foods, where it just like, so those are like a lot of the cruciferous vegetables, like things like broccoli or Brussels sprouts, right? Or kale, a lot of things that, but I thought that was good. Well, a lot of things, vegetables, if they are grown above ground, they produce a chemical that are repellent to animals, okay? So the fiber is good, but also it can become overwhelming to an unhealthy gut. So what happens, that's why you eat a salad and you feel bloated. But I'm eating all the right things, yeah, but it might not be right for you, because if you have inflammation in your gut, that's why you feel like crap after eating healthy, okay? So if you have, same thing with lactose intolerance. If you have inflammation in your gut lining produces an enzyme called lactase, which help digest lactose, right? So if you have inflammation for an extended period of time, your body's not producing lactase, so that way when you drink milk or eat cheese, your body goes out of control because you don't have that enzyme to help break that down, okay? So for those of us that have lactose intolerance, here's what you do. Here's what you do. To start reintroduction of this, because again, this is important and it's good for you, if you can. You start with like those like Parmesan cheese. So you eat a little bit of Parmesan cheese, because that's the best cheese in this department to talk about. And basically that doesn't require the lactase that, let's say, milk would. So it's a little bit easier on the GI lining. So you're like, oh my gosh, I did pretty good with that. Then what you want to start doing is you add like a tablespoon of milk at a time, just to see how your body responds to that. So you have to reintroduce it to start. Teresa, I know, that milk with the coffee, we're talking about that. You just don't like the taste of drink their own stuff. Girl, come to my house. So your body just has to start building up that enzyme so that way you can actually digest it and break it down. Sound good? Believe it or not, there is good ice cream that doesn't have a ton of junk in it too, that is okay to eat. Salt, long story short, eat it. It's good. If you are dehydrated, do not drink water. Drink salt water, and with minerals, and that's another topic. But basically, you want to make sure that you're remineralizing. That's what we talked about before. Got to make sure that we're eating enough salt. Gelatin, again, increases glycine, which opposes estrogen. So again, that's your collagen. Helps detoxify, decreases wrinkles, helps with people with arthritic pain, nourishes our joints and all of that connective tissue stuff. It's very good. Bone broth aids in digestion, high in glycine too, which opposes estrogen. So that's why bone broth is important. Heals and restores gut. Coffee. I love coffee, but coffee is actually encouraged. This is also why I love the pro-metabolic way of eating. But here's the thing with coffee. It's done in a certain way. So coffee by itself is a powerful stimulant. That is a stress, which increases cortisol, which increases this process. But coffee, if it has fat, protein, and sugar in it, okay, your body actually uses that caffeine in a good way. So if you drink coffee, and I was trying to tell Teresa, I'm like, well, just put a little bit of honey and a little bit of milk in it. And she's like, I hate milk. She's like, but I'll do it. And I've heard her complain about it every time I've seen you, actually, since we talked about it. I'm just kidding. I'm teasing Teresa. But you keep trying it. So if you do that, it doesn't tax your adrenal glands, okay? But if you drink just straight, bless you, I typically like just black coffee. But what coffee does without the presence of carbohydrates and fats is it stresses your adrenal glands, which is a stress, which kind of does that process, okay? So coffee with, let's say, a little bit of cream or heavy whipping cream or milk and let's say a little bit of honey, that's what you do. Or what I like to do, if I do like my black coffee, I have a piece of sourdough with my butter. I got the protein, I got the fats, and I got the carbohydrates, right? So it helps balance out the hormones in that process of my coffee in the morning.
No coffee mate.
No coffee mates,
No
correct.
coffee mate.
Correct. Limit the intake of broccoli, leafy greens, and other cruciferous vegetables such as Brussels sprouts, cauliflower. Bless you. We talked about that. Vegetables are made up of cellulose. Cellulose is also known as an undigestible fiber or roughage. So that's why, again, people that feel like, man, I just feel like I'm eating what I'm supposed to eat, but I just feel like crap after it, this is why. Roughage is a fiber, and increased fiber intake causes more damage, inflammation, and irritation of blood, of our gut, bloating, gas, digestive issues. We can't digest cellulose, so you have that bacterial overgrowth, and again, that vicious cycle continues. Eat well-cooked zucchini, squash, carrots, mushrooms, especially if you cook them in butter or broth. So here's the thing, basically, we talked about vegetables that grow above the ground versus vegetables that grow below the ground. It doesn't produce that, repellent almost. So that's why they're big on root vegetables, things like your carrots, things like beets, things like those things that grow below the ground, turnips, sweet potatoes, all of that's good, fair game, because it's easier to digest, your body can assimilate that energy, and those are the vegetables you want to focus on. Coconut oil, anti-inflammatory, antifungal, antibacterial, contains no PUFAs. Saturated fats. Okay, so saturated fats, these bonds of saturated fats are good. They do not clog your arteries. They are strong bonds that don't break apart and become oxidized when our body ingests them, okay? Here's where you get your fats from: organic butter, coconut oil, cheese, eggs, grass-fed beef, dark chocolate, full-fat dairy products. Who knows, those are all the things that we were told in the last 20 years to stay away from. Causes heart disease, causes strokes, causes heart attacks, clogs your arteries. Not true. In fact, that's a lie. All right? Saturated fats are good fats, help increase metabolic rates, detoxify liver, kidneys, pancreas, and guts. Not artery clogging, decrease your cholesterol, decreases your chances of heart disease and cancer, contain fat-soluble vitamins, assist in improving digestion. 20-30% of all your food calories should be coming from fats, by the way. Butter, can't say enough good things about it, eat it. Protein powders, I'm just kind of, for the sake of time, going through this. We're almost done. Protein powders. Here's the thing with protein powders. Most protein powders, well, obviously they're very processed. They have a ton of additives in them to help with consistency, how they blend with the water or the milk or whatever you're putting it with. So a lot of additives and chemicals are put in protein powders. There's very few that I actually recommend. So the best protein powder that you can get is collagen, because it is from grass-fed beef, very high in protein content, usually doesn't taste like anything. Yeah, you can get flavored, but generally I get unflavored. So if I put it in, I do like a little adrenal cocktail. I have my milk, I have my orange juice, I have my mineral salt, and I put a little scoop of protein in it. It's like a dream. You like creamsicles? Like, remember as a kid you got those like creamsicles? Tastes just like a creamsicle. Have it every time after I work out, after I do my CrossFit workout, because basically what that does is it shuts down the cortisol response. So your body's not in fight or flight mode anymore, right? And it allows your hormones to re-regulate. It gives your body the protein for healing and repair. It gives it the sugar that you just burned off, right? And it gives it the mineral with the sea salt that you just sweat off or sweat out, right? And so it's like the perfect little, plus it's so good. You want me to say it again?
Yeah.
Okay, it's milk, it's orange juice, mineral salt, and collagen. However you like that combination, I usually do a little bit more orange juice than I do of milk, like 6 ounces, 4 ounces, 4 ounces, 2 ounces, depending on what I want. 1 scoop of collagen, and it's basically, it's called an adrenal cocktail. It helps shut down that cortisol, that stressful response, and it's good. It's like a little good little protein shake. Okay, in closing, here's what I want us to do, a little bit, as you go home tonight, and again, we kind of went over a lot of information that I'm sure you guys will have questions with. Feel free to email, call, ask, whatever. I'm always here for you, 24/7, 365, okay? So, but here's what I want to put this into practical use. I want us to go home, when you're going through this, when you're writing out your grocery list, when you're like, okay, so how am I gonna pack my meals? How am I gonna make this a success? I want us to never forget like what your why is. And so that why is different for all of us. Like I can see from side to side that there's a lot of different health concerns that you and I have been working on for the last however long that I've known you. But also like there's things that go deeper at an emotional level that it's like, man, I really want to see my grandkids grow up, or I really want to be that active parent, or I really want to have the energy that fulfill the calling and the giftings that God has in my life. Whatever that why is, I want you to write that down, because a lot of times we get so distracted by kind of that hitting the wall that we forget and we undermine why we even started this whole health journey in the first place. So if you look at any big success people, whether it comes to fitness or business or financial success or whatever, they all say the same thing, that basically you have to understand what your purpose is, what is your why. You need to then write that down, and you need to visualize that coming to pass. So what I want you to do is I want you to go home and why do you want to be healthy? Why do you want to balance out your hormones? Why do you want to increase your metabolism? And I want you, whether it's think about it, pray about it, visualize it, whatever that looks for you in your journey, that looks for different possibly for all of us. But if you don't speak that out, like in that is kind of like on the floor. So I have like, it kind of just depends on the week, but I have little sticky notes on my mirror just to remind me, whether it's a verse, whether it's, you know, an idea, whether it's my goals, whether, you know, you've heard like we just, January, anyone did a vision board? You know what those are? You're like, I did a vision board one time, this was a couple years ago. I don't know why I haven't done it before, but by the end of that year, literally we were just going over with my team, there were 9 things that were like came to pass on that vision board, 9 things. And I cut out pictures and like whatever, and I stuck them on this board and I put it in my office and I almost forgot about it. And when I would go in every couple weeks and pay my bills, I'd be like, oh yeah, I want to win, that's the only thing, main thing, I want a windmill. I don't have a windmill yet. I think I need to do a vision board, right? But whatever that looks like. So when we write that down, when we visualize it, and then you speak that, because a lot of times what happens is we just get so frustrated with life that we're like, well then screw it. It's not working. It didn't work for me then, it's not gonna work. I knew it wouldn't work, right? We kind of just get stuck in our own mindset. But then when we're remembering like, hey, no, I want to be healthy for my family, I want to be healthy for my purpose, I want to be healthy for my dreams, my goals, whatever God has for me, that's the life I want to live, right? So putting this into practical application is way more than just like, well, I'm proud of you guys for making it on a Monday night. Today's really though just the first step, right? It's the start of your 2023 journey when it comes to really starting to balance everything back out and really living that best life. So if you weren't adjusted, I will go adjust you. Any questions, any concerns? What? I'm just kidding.
Is there something else you could drink besides orange juice?
Any juice. Fruit juice. Orange juice is one of the better ones though. But any natural, unprocessed juice. That's why they're like fruits or fruit juice.
Thank you,
Yes.
Dr. Megan.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yes.
Juice fasting, good for cleansing, but what is it bad for metabolic?
Long term, yes.
Like a 5-7 day, 10 day?
You're probably good for like 3 to 5 days.
Okay.
So your body's producing, so it kind of just depends on how much you're drinking. But it probably depends a big portion of that, because again, you're gonna need your protein over time. Your body doesn't have protein, it's gonna start breaking down.
Well, it's